Hello everyone, this is Jimmy Cultist, back again with another logic video, and today we're going to be talking about how to create scattered emissions and/or a shotgun blast. Basically replicating the random spread created by a load of buckshot, or otherwise shrapnel, I guess you could say. But let's get right down to business. First of all, we have our character here, who has a firing animation contained within this chip called attacks. There's another chip called ranged. I've gone over here to the controller sensor, which is contained in the controller logic chip. I've opened it up with the tweak menu. L1 and square, if you want to know how to do that. And R1 is the button that I've chosen to do the business of shooting. Just press X and connect it to the node inside the chip. And to that node I have connected a NOT gate. It goes into the power, which you can access by pressing L1 and square. Just press X and stick it in there like so. Then take the output and connect it to a timeline, set to play once. I'm sure you're familiar with this old gimmick. It prevents instant playback. On the timeline I have a switch hooked up to the NOT gate. We've seen this before. I have a sound effect for the shooting of the gun. I have very basic animations for the firing of the gun. I'm using keyframes set to linear blend. I have a little splash effect using paint flecks set to onion skin, I believe. No, actually it's not onion skin. But it's just paint flecks, a little puff of smoke to give the illusion that there's, you know, smoke coming from the barrel. It only exists for about 0.4 seconds. So not very long. It's emitted once. Not super important. What's really important is this, the shot, which I have emitted. And I'll explain how that works. I took a sculpt, a simple cube with a round cylinder in the center. I have made it invisible and non-collidable. I've also gone to the tool setting, and I've adjusted the detail to be reduced, because it's not going to be visible anyway, so why have it, you know, be fully detailed when it's not visible. I've also put a chip on it, and inside here you'll notice these emitters, and you may be wondering, what do they emit? Well, I'll show you. Over here I have a sculpt, which is basically a cylinder with a ball at the top, giving it the illusion that it's a shell. It's actually made up of a group. I've grouped it with a small paint fleck to act as the trail. It glows, of course, and it's set to a playback speed of 2,500. Set to loop and jet trail, so that it'll kind of wave, you know, it'll kind of travel with the bullet or whatever, and leave a trail. And on top of this group, I have placed a microchip with a mover set to 25% strength, full movement strength, and full overall dampening. I've also got a damage modifier, or a health modifier, set to hurt foe and friend, but that's not really important. And I've got this, which is completely useless to what we're doing. Just a bit of leftover logic, since this is repurposed. But what is important is this trigger zone, which is set to detect a label. And the label it is set to detect is scenery, foe, and friend, meaning that if it collides with the room, or anything labeled foe or friend, which maybe we can make it so it doesn't collide with friends, because we are a friend. so it won't blow up on impact with the enemy. And it's hooked up to a emitter set to emit once. Emitted object lifetime 0.5. 0 velocity or emit speed. And it just emits this puff of smoke, which I have animated using keyframes to expand and then shrink and then destroy itself. And it's a group, of course. But it emits this group, and as soon as it has emitted the puff of smoke, we'll go over here to the secondary settings here, input and outputs, and you'll see the object just emitted output, which I have hooked up to a destroyer. So when the bullet collides with something and emits the smoke, the bullet will be destroyed. And each of these little emitters, which I have placed on the piece of material mentioned earlier, emit a bullet, which I can easily select with X. It emits once, and the lifetime is 5.0. And all I've done is taken these multiple emitters and copied them and slightly altered the angle of the bullet, which if you open the tweak menu, you'll see this little white thing here, which you can grab onto and move with R2 and L2. But that's pretty much it, just multiple emitters. The little bit of variation that I've added, just so the pattern won't repeat and it'll feel more random, I've added this little action recorder set to keyframe mode, and then I've opened up the timeline and opened up the tweak menu of the shot, and all I did was slightly alter the trajectory of our little thing here, our little block. Rolled it around a bit. You can kind of see it changing angles, and what this does is gives it randomness and makes it feel like it's, you know, changing trajectory, and it's not just the same repeated pattern over and over again. It's a good way to do what I think they call bloom in first-person shooters, where you have the shots get more random as they go out, you know. They fly in a random pattern. Just take an action recorder, record an initial frame where it's in the initial position, then record multiple frames with different positions, copy that frame to the end, set them to smoothing on, and set it to loop, and increase the speed, and it will basically create the random pattern we're looking for. Now let's go ahead and test it. You'll notice that the smoke clouds are tracking differently, changing position. But that's an easy way to do a shotgun. And you may be wondering, well, why can't I just copy out a bunch of bullets and group them and then emit them? Because if you want to make any changes to the bullet itself, you're going to have to make them individually with all those bullets and change all this logic. But with this system, you can just change one bullet and the pattern will remain the same. And it will be easier to correct issues with the bullet without all that painstaking rigmarole. Anyway, hopefully you found this helpful if you're making a shooter or, I don't know, any kind of game really. Maybe you want a platforming enemy that shoots a shotgun at you. Thanks for watching. Hopefully this was an insightful video or otherwise enjoyable. If it was, then go ahead and subscribe if you can, and hit the bell to keep up with our videos. Also, subscribed or not, give a like. If you have any questions or statements, leave a comment. We try to answer all comments. If you like what we do here and want to help out, consider becoming a channel member. Alternatively, you can check out the link in the description to support us through Patreon. Until next time, take it easy. That's all for now.